It's Thursday, and with us today is Denis Campbell. He is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, also hosts Worldview Show on YouTube at youtube.com/Worldview Show. So, Denis, we've been talking Syria all week and some of last week, and the latest news is that the Senate panel has indeed voted in favor of following President Obama's recommendation or decision, call it what you will, regarding military airstrikes in Syria. What do you know now about, we talked about the UK vote, which did not go in that same direction. What's it looking like in terms of the broader, the likelihood more broadly of military strikes?
Well, that's really the $64,000 question today, is that we don't know how this is going to end. And, quite frankly, the precedent of the United Kingdom, who one can, this was a triple whip. So this was something that they all should have been 100% behind. But you had 24 or so that didn't even bother to show up, and then another 12 or so that voted against. And, the penalty is perhaps expulsion from the party if you don't, follow your party line. But there's no way they can afford to throw 36 people out of our party here, the Tory party here in the United Kingdom. And you now got a situation where a large number of Democrats are looking as though they may not support the president, along with the Tea Party, more non-interventionist Republicans. So where this thing actually ends up is still very much in the air.
Yeah, the poll on davidpakman.com, of course, a very informal poll, completely unscientific, people just self-selecting and answering. The prevailing wisdom at this point seems to be that there will be military strikes that will not involve a coalition. It will be the U.S. essentially going it alone, and that's certainly a possibility. Now, we've been talking a lot about a humanitarian crisis or violence against civilians as kind of reasoning for military action. And I've pointed out that I think that that's a huge red flag when we hear a humanitarian crisis as the primary reasoning for why a military incursion should take place. Because as we know, historically, there are always any number of humanitarian crises where the U.S. or others could get involved, and they don't. And it makes me ask, what else is there behind this? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, humanitarian crises happen everywhere. I mean, for some reason, if you're in sub-Saharan Africa, that's not enough of a humanitarian crisis to fit the national interest of the United States. There was an incident last weekend, though, David, that is very, very disturbing, and it does tend to fall in the humanitarian side as well as in the political calculus side. Over in Iraq, the story I've been following now for the last 3.5 years and working on, Camp Ashraf, where 3,400 people used to live. The vast majority were relocated to Camp Liberty near Baghdad International Airport. But Camp Ashraf over the weekend was brutally attacked by Iraqi troops under the direction of the Iranian authorities, because Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is no more than a puppet of the Iranians in Tehran and the mullahs. So they launched attack on the 100 or so people that are remaining in Camp Ashraf, who were there to sort of basically sell off the assets, because Ashraf was more of a city. It's been there for 25 years. They were brutally attacked. There were about 100 of people left on the thing, and 52 of them were executed, almost gangland style, as you would say in the United States. They were shot through the back of the head while they were handcuffed. The rest were shot in their sick bed. 52 of them so far have died, maybe even up as high as 55 now, and 40-something were injured. So basically anybody that was left in Ashraf was either seriously wounded or killed, and it looks as though there could be an attack on the main camp itself near Baghdad, where there are 3,100 Iranian refugees. So you're seeing all sorts of bad acting by people under the cover that no one is going to jump in and do anything if the American president and the coalition forces can't even come together to decide what they want to do about the Syrian madman, let alone the rest of the region. And therein lays the rub.
Well, right. And this particular incident is just one of many where the argument could be made that, hey, if the U.S. really is just concerned with helping innocent people who are being killed, attacked, targeted, whatever the case may be, there are countless opportunities to do it. With Iraq looking back now, there are any number of theories about what was it in addition to we've got to save those poor people that Saddam Hussein is committing violence against. And we know about oil and natural resources. There's theories about kind of unfinished business for George W. Bush relating to when his father, George H.W. Bush, went into Iraq, the kind of general feeding of the military-industrial complex. So specifically with Syria, what are your thoughts on what might be there above and beyond this humanitarian reason that Assad used chemical weapons to go in?
In a word, Iran. The close relationship that Assad has with the mullahs and the Iranian government, the close relationship that they have with the Iraqi government. Iran is the spoiler. They are the 500-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of the region that if they can, they will do anything they can because, if you have an unstable Syria, then you've got a straight pipeline for Iran to feed Hezbollah over in Lebanon. You've got all kinds of issues on the Palestinian side. You've got all kinds of issues throughout that entire tinderbox of a region. As we talked about last week, you've got centuries old, distrust and fights between Sunni and Shia and Alawi Muslims. And, we're trying to step into the middle of a civil war, which is pretty much lunacy.
All right, Denis, give us a sense of what's coming up on Worldview Show, which of course people can find at youtube.com/Worldview Show.
Well, we've got a very big story coming up on Monday. There's a gentleman, he has two daughters that are about 13 and 14 years of age, and they were born with basically life-threatening diseases. They weren't expected to make it into their teens. They have thus far. And we're going to be interviewing the father, Otto Kyriakides, there in California. He basically has got to find a way to raise $2 million in order to pay off the insurance and the hospitals. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how broken the U.S. insurance system is because the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, have found a potential cure that's working in 1 out of 3 cases for the particular disease that these two young girls have. So we'll talk about the broken healthcare system, even with the Affordable Health Care Act, and how these people are being essentially bankrupted by the system, by the insurance companies, by the hospitals, and they really have no other recourse. And it just seems an absolute crying shame to those of us here on this side of the pond because nothing like that would be allowed to happen.
All right, Worldview Show. Check it out, youtube.com/Worldview Show and youtube.com/BookView TV. Denis, thanks as always, and we will talk to you next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.